Joseph Di Prisco has devoted his life to language as a writer, teacher, mentor, and benefactor. The acclaimed author of two best-selling memoirs, six novels, two books on childhood and adolescence, essays in numerous journals and periodicals, Joseph has also written three collections of poetry, Wit's End, Poems in Which, and Sightlines from the Cheap Seats. For this eclectic writer, no matter what else is on its plate, it's always been poetry. My last resume, New and Collected Poems, from Rare Bird Books, November 21st, 2023, is the heart and soul of a lifetime of writing from Joseph Di Prisco. Included is a selection of work from his previous three collections, as well as work spanning more than 5 decades. Hi, welcome to the Prolific Pulse Poetry Podcast. I'm so happy to welcome Joe Di Prisco today. His author name is Joseph Di Prisco, and I'm really happy because I got the opportunity to read this book, My Last Resume. And I hope it's not Joe's last resume, but he's going to tell us a little bit more about that, how it came from, where it came from, what inspired it, and so on. So, Joe, welcome.
Hi, great to see you, Lisa. It's a wonderful day here in California, and you're in North Carolina.
Yep, right here in
It's great to
Raleigh,
talk. And thank
Raleigh,
you so
North
much for
Carolina.
um, and it's so we you asked about the origin of this book. I think it's what, getting old or something. I get to a certain stage where here are my collected poems. And it's it's sort of a moment of truth when you say, okay, what did I write? Well, it turns out it was a pretty rocky road there for many years. I started publishing poems when I was in college, and then I sort of lost the thread for years. Uh, Lots of different projects and problems intervened, and and it was, I wouldn't have traded anything for those experiences. But then later on in life, I said, okay, I started writing again poetry, and actually, since the book came out, this I find odd actually. Since the book came out, I've been writing poems like crazy again. I thought I was done. No, I'm not done.
You woke up
So
the poetry juices in you again.
yeah, yeah, it's been a long, as I say somewhere, life is very short except when it's very long, and sometimes it's both at the same time. So
Mhm.
there's a moment of recognition. Okay, here's here's where I am. My last resume. Somebody was doing a piece on me in Brooklyn, Irish American writer. He said, "So, are you sick? Are you?" I said, "Well, I don't. I let, yeah, I guess we're all kind of sick here. We're all on the way." Yeah, and I think, well, what is a resume? I find a resume is kind of a depressing document. You're sort of summarizing yourself. I did this, I did that. These are the languages I can pretend to speak, and these are the people who are going to say nice things for me if I beg them. It's a kind of weird document. So, and I wanted, so I made up a resume. That's the title poem about things I sort of didn't do. Anyway, that's the title.
I actually thought that was a great prompt for a poem. I'm going to be in a happiness conference, writing conference at the theme of happiness coming up in
Hmm.
July, and I thought that would be a wonderful prompt to help us discover our happiness. And so I think I might borrow from that if you don't mind.
Please use my poem. Be happy for you to do that. Another good prompt is one of the big poems, one of the important poems for me was my mission statement. I remember when I taught high school a long time ago, I would have kids write their own mission statement. And it was, you know, you got somewhere with kids when they sort of had to, okay, this is my mission, whatever it is. It's good to have a mission, right? We need a
It
mission.
really is, and that's a great idea for students to get them thinking along those lines, maybe finding their purpose and setting some goals.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that.
Yeah.
What did you teach?
Oh, well, I taught at, I went to graduate school at Berkeley and taught there for a while, adjuncted there, and then uh, I didn't, I, I didn't have any interest. Well, I didn't have much success at being an academic. I did finish up my degree. I wrote a dissertation on Mark Twain, but uh, so academia wasn't for me. I ended up teaching high school for years in San Francisco and in the East Bay. And, I think high school is great. It's everything's at play in the high school classroom. You can teach anything if you know what you're doing, and they don't know what they're not supposed to know. So it's exciting. By the time they're in college, they could be a little bit jaded about, oh, I've not done this, I've been to this rodeo before. But then high school with smart kids, or any, not just smart, any kind of kid anything's accessible. You can teach the canon, you could teach the anti-canon, you could teach anything. Because it's great dealing with kids. They wear their feelings on their sleeves, and they usually wear them on your sleeve if you give them a chance. And I love that, the intensity of a high school classroom. And actually wrote a book about adolescent development, because as many people have said, my development has been arrested a long time ago. I never did get out of adolescence, which I think is a good marker for a poet. I think a poet is, because you can't define adolescence. That's the thing. If you read all about the theoreticians of,
Really can't.
it's such a fluid signifier. What the heck is adolescence? Everything is possible? Well, great. I love that. That would be fantastic. Anyway, I love teaching high school. And but that was another lifetime ago. Not doing that anymore.
Have any of your students gone on to become writers?
Yes, a fair number.
Good.
One very famous one, actually, but I wish her luck. And anyway, it's been, it's that's always interesting to think back on the kind of people who've been in your classroom. And but honestly, I could remember, I'm still in touch with former students basically every week, every day sometimes. And it's gratifying to know that you had some kind of impact on somebody's life.
Yeah, it really is.
And I tell them all, I said, okay, so I haven't taught for probably 20 years. I said, I'll be getting your papers back any day. Just hang on there. So
yeah, I can imagine. That's the one thing I would not like about teaching is the homework that you have to grade.
I know you assign something and they do it. That's crazy. Then you have to read the darn things. I like that, actually. One of the fun things with this project that I founded 9 years ago. It's our 9-year-old birthday today. New literary project is we work with high school age kids, taught by creative writers from Cal and from St. Mary's College of California. We taught hundreds of kids over the last 9 years, and so it's been great dealing with, and I'm editing an anthology right now for the New Literary Project, which will include lots of writing by these students from Juvenile Hall in Contra Costa County and Girls Inc. in Alameda County, and public high schools and free lunch. Everybody, 90% of these kids are kids of color. 90% would be first generation college. So it's a great, and these are very talented writers. Anyway, I'm doing an anthology with them. And in the same anthology, we got Joyce Carol Oates and Ben Fountain and luminaries, distinguished famous writers. And I think it's fun to put all this ecosystem in play, all these different kind of resources and voices speaking to each other.
That's excellent. You'll have to let me know when that's complete and send me the link for that, because that sounds fascinating.
Well, this is volume 6, so this is our 6th time around. And so I'm the series editor, and it's I've never done that before, so I started editing this, and it's fun. And we just awarded our 8th Joyce Carol Oates Prize, which is a $50,000 prize to a mid-career author of fiction. The winner's from North Carolina,
Oh, yeah?
From Chapel Hill, Ben Fountain, who's a terrific
Oh,
writer.
yeah.
Ben's a sweetheart. I've known Ben a long time.
I
So
met
we
him
have
once.
yeah, he's a great guy. He's in Dallas now,
Mhm.
unfortunately. I think he kind of likes Texas a little bit. Anyway, he'll be out here for a residency. And anyway, so we have this long involved process that starts in the fall. We consider a long list of writers. We've long listed 310 writers over the last 8 years. We've had 40 finalists and 8 prize winners. And the jury is composed of people, professors from Cal, uh, artists from the community, and we send up the jury takes a look at all these books, and of course we're awarding a prize to an author, not for a specific book. That makes it kind of interesting.
Yeah,
There's nothing like that, actually, it turns out.
yeah. That's excellent. Wow.
I do get a lot of grief. What come no poets? I said, I know, you're right. I have no defense for that. There are so many poets.
How old were you when you first started writing poetry?
I was very young. I was under 10.
Mhm.
Um, I remember vividly because we lived in Brooklyn, Greenpoint, which is now a very fashionable shishi location near Williamsburg. When I grew up there, it was a very Polish neighborhood with a very strong Italian mob presence. And I was a very pious little boy. The church was at the corner. It was a Polish Catholic church, Polish school around the corner. Very small world. It's like that old New York joke. Hey, did you grow up around here? Nah, 1 block over. So it was like, oh, this little tiny worlds.
Yes.
Anyway, so I grew up and so we didn't have any books in our house. I was the only person in my family to graduate from high school. My dad was a bookmaker in Brooklyn, and that's how we got to California because he was on the run from the FBI and the New York City police. We ended up in California, which I hated. I didn't know if I loved Brooklyn, but I know I hated California. Lost all my friends, and so that took a long time but anyway, so I started writing poetry out of what? Dispossession, I guess, exile. Those are good feelings to,
Yeah.
you, you write out of that kind of primal stuff. And I ended up in Berkeley of all places. My dad's after this criminal life, he ends up in Berkeley. He could never have explained how he ended up in Berkeley. He couldn't explain much, actually. I remember when I was a kid, I would ask him questions. I was one of those annoying kids that never stopped asking questions. And his stock retort to me was, "What are you writing a book?" I said, "Okay, good." I said, "Yeah." Turns out I was writing a book. Anyway, so I was writing poems for a long time, and religious poems. And I remember when I was 16, I just wrote about this actually. My favorite teacher of all time, and still is to this day my favorite teacher of all time. Uh, I was in high school, my senior English teacher, and I gave him a sheath of poems to read one afternoon, lunchtime. And I had him on a pedestal, and he could quote T.S. Eliot and took courses at Cambridge or Oxford, whatever the difference is between those two. I did have no idea. But anyway, I valorized him totally. And the first thing he says to me is, I thought maybe he was going to give me a prize after reading his poems. They're just so, I'm 16. I said, just set the world on fire. His first question to me was, what makes you think these are poems? Boy, did I feel horrible for
Yeah.
him. I felt horrible for him that he didn't understand what he was dealing with. The genius across his desk, they're right here. Okay, maybe these weren't the greatest poems in the world, but I learned something that finally you're on your own. This is the guy I saw him not too long ago. I still think he's the best teacher I ever had. When I taught, I used every lesson I learned from him teaching. He's a great teacher. And what did you learn? Well, you're on your own as a poet. People may not get it. Got to be your own fool. So I learned that early on. So that was my, that's so, then I went to college. I started publishing poems when I was in college, published my first book, had first baby when I was 24. And um, there you go. And as I was saying a second ago, I write about these in my two memoirs, the years of various activities. Some that I don't need my grandchildren to read about, but which they will. And God bless them, they will someday. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Lisa.
All right. Well, that's interesting. Sorry, I had a little background noise there.
Okay.
When I was looking through your book, and it spans from, we have a gap in here, from 71 to 80, and then from 99 to 2023. Like you say, you have that gap, which is giving you fodder for your future poems. You know, but life happens, then we start making note of it in the back of our mind. We're going to write about that one day. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I do. I had a gap too, and
Mm-hmm.
in that gap, I was developing ideas for things to write about. So,
Well, it turns out it's not linear. Why would it be linear? Is life linear? No. So why would a poet's career, to use a two-bit term, what would that even look like? Or why would it? I mean, you can't program this stuff. You can't program anything that's interesting, as far as I can tell. I don't care if you could be a monk, you could be an entrepreneur, you could be anything. There's no linear path. We're all in this whatever we call this. Well, it's perfect for poetry. Because poetry, what I love about poetry, I remember by the time 2000 came around, and I spent years playing cards professionally and around the world. So I had lots of experiences that I both regretted and enjoyed, and they did give me lots of fodder. Anyway, so by the time 2000 came around, somehow I started writing fiction, which was a totally new thing for me. I can vividly remember when I was, in college thinking, I would never deign to write fiction. I'm a poet. Well, that's stupid. That made no sense. Anyways, I started writing fiction, which was fun, which was a great thing to do. And so I published 6 novels. And since then, I've got a couple still coming up here. And uh, I mean, with a novel, as opposed to poetry, with a novel, it's like opening a business, and I've opened business. Machinery and marketing and, placement and programming, all this stuff to do with a novel. And you got to plan it. When it comes to poetry, poetry is kind of like shoplifting. Okay, okay, I got this moment here. I'm going to steal this moment, and this is it. And I mean, for me, I don't know about you, Lisa, but when you're writing, when I'm writing, if I know where I'm going, it's going to be a bad poem. So I know I have to let it rip. I know I need to find my way. The poem will teach me what it wants to teach me. And I'll fail. I mean, if you're in my office right now, you see notebooks everywhere full of failed poems. And that's good. I like keeping them around. And sometimes it just sort of works. And anyway, so what's a poem do? Well, changes your day if you write a good poem. And if you read a great poem, oh, wow, I see things. And for me, it's about music. It's in my ear. I don't have any theory,
right.
any overarching program when it comes to poetry or anything for that matter. But it's so for me, it's I'm following the tones, I'm following the music, and that's where if I think anything works, it's because of that. So I don't have any ideas, as obvious from this interview. I have no ideas. So thank you for bearing with me.
I think probably from what you've said, and what I think is probably a good chance of happening, that you're going to go from your last resume to a book called My Potential Retirement Plan or something like that. It's going to be more poems because you're not done yet. And
No,
I don't think you will be.
yeah, retirement scares me. One of the great things about being a writer is you don't have to retire ever. I know Philip Roth and think that, retired, and I never understood that. Well, that's why I founded New Literary Project. This is my day job, my pro bono, my Joe Bono job. This is I'm chair of the board, and which I love doing. I've been chair several times, and I love my staff, uh, and we have lots of people. I mean, a friend of mine said, "Oh, so you're chair of the board. What's it like being chair of the board?" And I said, "I learn something every day." And he said, "That bad, huh?" I said, "Yeah." Anyway, it's true. I do learn something every day. And we're dealing with literary communities and school communities and kids and professional writers and Joyce herself. It's always something. You're going to learn something every day, which is great. It's a great thing for me.
Well, Joe, do you think you'd like to read us some of your poetry?
Do you want me to read the title poem? Should I do that?
That'd be great.
Okay, excellent. I happen to have it right here. Very handy, huh? Okay.
I happen to have it too.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to have it.
Anyway, like I was starting to say, it's a demeaning thing, a resume. Um, but I was reading something. What should a resume accomplish? It should provide specific examples of your strengths and contributions. So these are my specific non-contributions and examples right here. My last resume. When I was a troubadour, when I was an astronaut, when I was a pirate, you should have seen my closet. You would have loved my shoes. Kindly consider my application, even though your position is filled. This is my stash of snow globes. This is my favorite whip. This is a picture of me with a macaw. This is a song I almost could sing. When I was a freight train, when I was a satellite, when I was a campfire, you should have seen the starburst. You should have tasted my tomato. I feel sorry for you, I'm unqualified. This is my finest tube of toothpaste. This is when I rode like the Raj on a yak. This is the gasoline. This is the match. When I was Hegel's dialectic. When I was something Rothko forgot. When I was moonlight paving the street. You should have seen the roiling shore. You should have heard the swarm of bees. So I was thinking about all the jobs I had. So here's some jobs I had. I was in a monastery when I was 19. So I picked grapes. That's a hard job, picking grapes. It's a really hard job. You get stung by bees and it's hot as hell. Okay, you got that. So I sold shoes, women's and ladies' shoes, as the joke went. Okay. But I did that. That was fun. That wasn't fun at all. It was hard work. I taught summer school when I was in college. I played cards, blackjack around the world, got barred by every casino in the world in the 80s. I managed restaurants. I created restaurants from the ground up. I was a sommelier. I was a consultant. I was a high school teacher, college adjunct. I was a teaching assistant. I was a high school vice principal. I had back in the day when you had keys on your belt. I had a lot of keys. I was good at it, but I hated that job. I hated being vice principal, but I needed a job. I was broke a lot, it turns out. And then I founded a nonprofit. Those were some of the jobs that I can remember. And that's my story, Lisa, and I'm sticking to it. Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So what is your plan next?
Well, I'm going to keep growing, doing all I can to keep New Literary Project relevant and strong. just did a new strategic plan. Our plan is to stay a startup forever. And it's about we teach, we engage, we inspire each other through writing throughout our whole ecosystem. So that's and then I've got a book of short stories and a new novel. And like I say, lots of that are finished. My agent's shopping them around. And then I have a lot of new poems. So it's busy. It's good.
Where can people find your work?
My website. I have a brand new website just opened a couple of weeks ago. Did you look at it? It's a lot. It's
I have
kind
not.
of it's kind of fun. It's kind of interactive and
Okay, I'll put it in the show notes then.
yeah, it's deprisco.com. And then books are sold everywhere. Wherever fine and unfine books are sold, you can find my books.
Okay. Was there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with us?
Well, one question I get a lot is, well, do you have any advice for writers? And the shorter answer is no. But I do have something to say. I don't know if it's advice, and that's sort of a version of what I would, when I was teaching, I'd say, let it go. Just don't hold back. Just say what you got to say, and don't keep it within. So I don't exactly have advice for younger writers or any writer for that matter, but I'd say, leave it all on the field. Just go for it. What do you have to lose? And if you can't take risk, I mean, risk being stupid, risk being wrong, risk saying the wrong thing, the inappropriate thing, risk it. You might say the right thing.
Exactly.
I like that. I like that as for what that's worth.
Yeah. I often tell people too that to be observant, there's a poem in everything. If you want there to, anything and everything has a poem in it. You just have to kind of be open to that.
So true. I mean, Joyce has a list of 27 clues to being a writer, and she said, "Well, this won't help anybody," but as she wrote these out, and so I just spoke to her yesterday. I said, "Well, the first clue is write your heart out."
Mm-hmm.
And that's also the last clue, 27. Write your heart out.
I agree with that. Absolutely. What better words to close with, right?
What can you lose? What could go wrong?
Not a thing. You might end up writing more of these books.
That's the story.
This beautiful cover. I did not mention this, but I really dig this cover.
Isn't that cool?
Did you know someone that you commissioned for that, or was it all about
my publisher figured that out. He's amazing. And in fact, if you go to my website, you're going to see that this image is actually sort of live on the website. You're going to see it moving around on your website.
Definitely will go there next. Yeah, it's really, as a publisher, I design a lot of the covers for our books.
I know, I saw that. It's beautiful stuff.
One of my favorite things to One of my favorite things to do is design covers, because I'm also an artist, and so I enjoy exercising that talent as well. So yeah, but this is when I see a cool cover, I get all excited. But yeah, this is really good. So what everybody needs to do is go out and get this book. So they have this beautiful cover on their shelf. Open it up and see a nice variety of poems. I'm not going to spoil it, but they will be pleasantly surprised. So
it's a long journey, as we say in the writer's world, right? It's a journey.
It's a long journey, but you organized it well. You've kind of taken people by the hand through it. So I think it makes a big difference. So
50 years, several books, and ended up, there we go.
Yeah, it keeps you young.
That's right.
All right, well, thank you so much, Joe. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too, Lisa. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Lisa Tomey Zonneveld here from Prolific Pulse Press, LLC. I have a question. Do you have a poetry book in you? Have you written a poetry book that you'd like to have published? Well, you might give us an email to admin@prolificpulse.com. Check out our website, prolificpulse.com. See what the criteria is for submissions, and take a look at some of the other published authors who are listed on our site. We also do an annual anthology, so also be watchful for calls to submissions, which usually come out in the fall. It could be your opportunity to get your words out there for other people to recognize your work. So don't be a stranger. Prolific Pulse Press, LLC, wants to hear what you have to say. Thank you. Have a great day.